Do you think it tastes different today? Mila, my mother-in-law, asked with a sly grin. Tonight's dinner was curry. Really? I think it tastes just like it always does. As I respond, Mila starts laughing uproariously, clapping her hands. I wonder what's so funny. What do you mean? I put this in it, she says, still laughing, showing me a bottle of bleach. Pregnant, I rush to the bathroom and throw up everything. Why would you do such a thing? I wanted you to have a miscarriage. Someone who can't even properly do housework shouldn't be raising children. That's just too cruel. How would she take responsibility if something happened to the child? Even when I tell my husband that she put bleach in the curry, he doesn't listen, saying, Mom would never do something like that. A week later, Mila was in a traffic accident and became paralyzed from the waist down. Now that I can't move freely, you'll have to take care of me for the rest of my life. That's right. You should take proper care of Mom, as she says. My husband chimes in. I was doing as they said, but one day Mila, who demanded to be taken to the bathroom quickly, threw a plastic bottle at me. At that moment, my suppressed emotions exploded. What? Go to the toilet by yourself. What's with that attitude? You're his wife. You should take care of me. Does she really think it's my duty just because I'm her son's wife? Wasn't she the one who almost killed my unborn child? Do whatever you want. I'm leaving this house. With those words, I left my parents-in-law's home. 2 years ago, I married Trevor, a full-time employee at an IT company, and quit my job when we got married. I feel bad for Cynthia, but I want you to live with me at my parents' house. I don't want to leave Mom alone. My father-in-law had passed away from a heart attack when Trevor was still an elementary school student, and it had been just Mila and him since then. I can somewhat understand Trevor's feelings. We're newlyweds. I wanted us to live by ourselves. But if Trevor insists, that's fine. Can I continue working, though? Can you also quit your job? I just don't want you to be alone during the day. Even though I felt it wasn't necessary to go that far, I lost to Trevor's insistence in my heart and decided to quit my job and agreed to live together at his parents' home. And so our cohabitation at the parents-in-law's home began. Mila, I look forward to living with you starting today. You know, I really wouldn't mind if you weren't here at all. Mila's unexpected reply took me aback. No need to say something like that on the first day. I'm only living here because Trevor asked me to. I was a bit irritated by Mila's words, but I just smiled and brushed it off. Right. Since you're here now, you'll take care of all the household chores, okay? All of them? You've quit your job to be a housewife, right? It's only natural for a married woman to do that much. True, as a housewife, now I do have the time, and it's not like I can't do it. Maybe Mila has a point. I'm going to be living at the parents-in-laws' home from now on. I should indeed take on the household responsibilities. Understood. I'll do it. Then please start with cleaning right away. What, now? I've just arrived at the parents-in-laws' home, and I haven't even unpacked my things yet. What are you daydreaming for? Get moving, or it'll be dark before you know it. Well, I guess I can take care of my stuff tomorrow. Mom, come on. Cynthia doesn't need to do it today. She's tired from moving. Just as I was about to start cleaning, Trevor stepped in to defend me. Mila didn't seem pleased with Trevor protecting me, and raised her voice at him. You! What's with the coddling? Wasn't it your idea to have her stay in the first place? So what? She's my wife, of course I'm going to take care of her. Life at the parents-in-law's home was full of uncertainty, but I felt truly relieved when Trevor shouted back at Mila in anger. With him by my side, I figured I could manage somehow. That's what I thought at the time. The next day, after seeing Trevor off to work, I relaxed in the living room and watched TV. Good morning. What are you watching? Oh, Mila. Good morning. I was just watching a soap opera. I returned the greeting to Mila, who had just woken up, and turned back to the TV. Then Mila grabbed the TV remote and turned it off. You don't have time to be lounging around. Get started on cleaning, right now! Mila suddenly snapped at me. There's no need to rush. It's only 8 a.m. I have plenty of time to finish everything by noon. Mila, there's no need to rush. It's still 8 a.m. Still? It's already 8 a.m. You don't have time to dawdle. Once cleaning is done, there's laundry, dinner prep, and shopping to do. Yes, I understand. Reluctantly, I started cleaning as Mila commanded. Just when it was getting good, too. I couldn't concentrate on cleaning because I was too caught up thinking about the soap opera. Did you finish cleaning? What about the toilet and shower room? Make sure the windows are clean too. Mila kept yelling at me while I was cleaning. I wonder why she's in such a hurry. She turned off the soap opera I was watching, so give me a break. Mila, I'm done. Too slow. Far too slow. How could Trevor marry such a dimwit? Even after we finished cleaning, Mila wouldn't stop with the sarcastic comments directed at me. If you have that much to say, do it yourself. That's what I was secretly wishing. I'm sorry for taking so long. Exactly. That's why I never wanted to live with such a useless woman. Whether I did the laundry, cleaned, or cooked, she seemed to always have something to complain about. Mila's mood never improved, continuing to throw cruel words at me one after another. The harassment went on every day from then on. Living like this every day is just too much. 3 months into living with Mila, I was at my limit, both mentally and physically. Around that time, I was newly pregnant with Trevor's child, and the morning sickness was so bad, there were days I could hardly move. Hey, my morning sickness is really bad, and there are days I can't move. Mila won't listen when I talk about it. Could you maybe talk to her for me? No way. It's your issue. You should tell her. It won't make a difference if I say anything. One day after Trevor came back from work, I sought his counsel, but he just laughed it off as if it had nothing to do with him and didn't listen at all. What was all that about yelling at Mila, saying he cared about me? Was it all just for show? I felt like I had no allies in this house, and day by day, my mood only got worse. Really, such a useless woman. It's a wonder you got married at all. Trevor really has no eye for people. Mila would snidely say to me daily, but I no longer cared. I stopped feeling irritated by Mila's words and spent my days expressionless. A month later, on that day, Trevor was out at a company party, so it was just Mila and me for dinner. As usual, I prepared dinner and laid out the evening meal on the table. Curry tonight, huh? Even you can mess up curry. Mila, as usual, commented sarcastically while looking at the curry before her. She complained, but ate everything without leftovers, so by now, I thought nothing of it. Well, shall we eat then? We began our meal, but Mila then asked me to bring her some water, so I stood up from my seat. After giving Mila the water, I returned to my seat and took a bite of the curry. Don't you think something's different than usual? Mila asked me with a nasty smile. Different? It's just normal, isn't it? It's the same as always. When I replied, Mila began to laugh loudly, clapping her hands. Why is she laughing so much? I'm completely lost here. Confused, I asked Mila what was going on. What's so funny that you're laughing like that? You're really oblivious, aren't you? Didn't you notice it even as you ate? I put this in. Can't believe you didn't notice. Did you like it that much? Mila laughed, showing me a container with bleach. I couldn't believe I had ingested something like that. But there was no change in taste or smell. Maybe the curry scent covered it up. I was filled with regret that I hadn't realized the bleach had been added to my food. No, this isn't the time to regret. I need to get what I ate out of my system, and fast. Remembering the little one in my belly, I rushed to the bathroom in a panic. Really, such a silly girl. As I gagged and struggled to keep vomiting, Mila just kept clapping her hands and laughing. How can she be so cruel? I can never forgive her for doing this, knowing I'm pregnant? In that moment, I finally raised my voice at Mila. This isn't funny! What have you done? What if something happens to my baby? There's no need to get so mad. You vomited it all out. You'll be fine. Mila didn't seem to feel any remorse at all. Thinking it's okay just because I vomited? That's absurd. Fine because I threw up? How can you say such things so calmly? Even a child knows not to drink bleach. I'm going to the hospital right now. After giving Mila a piece of my mind, I headed for the hospital. What if something happens to my baby? I couldn't calm my nerves. Please, let everything be okay. With my heart pounding as if it were right by my ear, I arrived at the hospital, praying for my child's safety, where I was immediately given a gastric lavage. After the doctor's examination, both the baby and I were declared fine. For now, you can go home, but if you feel off, come back immediately. There might be a delayed reaction. Relieved by the doctor's words, I returned to my parents-in-law's home. As soon as I got there, Mila started with her snide comment. Oh, look who's back! Making such a fuss over a little bleach. Why is she still laughing? I thought she had almost killed my child. Ignoring Mila, I went back to my room. If I talk to Mila now, I might just hit her. Oh, where have you been? Trevor was there, back from work. I went to the hospital! You won't believe this. Knowing I was pregnant, she put bleach in the curry, trying to feed me that. She even clearly said she wanted to cause a miscarriage. I told Trevor what Mila had done, but he seemed skeptical. Mom wouldn't do something like that. Stop lying. I felt a surge of anger at Trevor laughing and taking Mila's side. It's his child too. How can he laugh? Fine. If you don't believe me, so be it. But I will never forgive Mila. I don't want to stay in this house. If I keep staying here, she might actually kill my child. Mila kept up her harassment the next day and the day after. But I, having reached the peak of my anger, decided to ignore her completely. I kept up with the household as usual, but ignored Mila thoroughly, no matter what she said. After all, I'd be leaving this house soon anyway. A week later, as I was zoning out in the living room of my parents-in-law's home, my mobile phone rang. Cynthia, it's the police! Mom's been in an accident! Mila has? You didn't keep an eye on Mom? Just get to the hospital immediately! Mila had an accident? Now that I think about it, she did say she was going to buy groceries herself today. After hanging up with Trevor, I headed to the hospital where Mila was taken. As much as I dislike the person, I wouldn't feel good if she died. I just hope there's no life-threatening condition. Upon arrival at the hospital, I entered the private room where Mila was admitted. Is Mila okay? Yeah, she's pulled through. There was a grim look on Trevor's face. What happened? As I wondered, Mila spoke up. She seemed lucid and didn't appear to have any issues. My lower body? I can't move it. What? Does that mean you can't walk anymore? That's right. So now you'll have to take care of me. For life. Due to the accident, Mila suffered spinal cord damage, resulting in lower body paralysis. Hearing Mila's declaration, Trevor also broke into tears, saying, Exactly! Why did you let Mom go shopping in the first place? You should have took care of her, just like she said. That's what he told me. Why do I have to be the one to take care of her? This has to be a joke. I spoke up firmly to both of them. Why do I have to take care of Mila? After she almost killed our child? Fortunately, nothing happened, but what she did is attempted murder, you know. That may be true, but you're my wife. It's only natural for you to take care of Mom. Just because I'm his wife, I'm supposed to take care of Mila? He should take care of his own mother. Why don't you take care of your own parent? Stop pushing everything onto me. I have work, and I can't always be there. That's why I'm asking you. Plus, it's your fault for letting Mom go shopping in the first place. Take responsibility. Mila had said she wanted to go shopping, so I let her. Why do I have to be the bad guy? This family is so selfish. Realizing that arguing was futile, I stopped responding to them. 3 days later, Mila was discharged and returned to our parents-in-law's home. After dropping Mila off at the parents-in-law's home from the hospital, Trevor immediately left for work. It seems he has no real intention of taking care of Mila. Usually, you'd take the day off on your parents' discharge day. I'm so angry that he's dumped everything on me. Aside from her lower body paralysis, Mila is very energetic and started ordering me around as soon as she got back to the parents-in-law's home. Hey, pass me that remote control. You can reach it yourself. Why don't you get it? My legs don't work. Her upper body is fine, and the remote is within reach if she stretches out her arm. Don't call me over for such a trivial matter. That evening, the day Mila returned to the parents-in-law's home, her voice echoed from the living room. Hey, come here, will you? Not this again. Now what's it this time? Feeling fed up, I had been ignoring Mila, but her voice was getting louder and louder. Can't you hear me, you bitch? Get over here now! Reluctantly, I headed towards the living room. What's with all the yelling? Finally showed up, huh? I need to go to the bathroom. Take me there, will you? No, I won't. Please don't raise your voice for such things. After all, you're wearing diapers in case of emergencies. Leaving those words with Mila, I tried to return to my room. That's when I felt a strong impact on my back. Ouch! Looking at my feet, there was a plastic bottle full of water rolling around. Seems like Mila threw it in frustration at my attitude. Mila, did you throw this? That's right! It's your fault for not taking me to the bathroom! Just do as I say without any backtalk! I had reached my limit. After being ordered around and having things thrown at me, and to think my child might have been killed. Time to let her know she's mistaken if she thinks I'll always be a pushover. Quiet and obey, huh? I might feel sorry for your condition, Mila, but aren't you getting a bit too carried away? What about me is getting carried away? That's what I'm talking about. You yell when things don't go your way and throw things. Besides, like I said at the hospital, why should I have to care for you? I told Mila with a cold voice. That might be true, but at least take me to the bathroom. I already told you no. Besides, I'm leaving this house. Huh? Mila looked surprised, unable to grasp what I was saying. After she threw the plastic bottle at me, I decided then and there to leave this house today, right now. I'm not about to keep bending to someone like her. Leave, as in this house? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Did the accident make you stupid? I'm sick of being ordered around by you and Trevor. Oh, I'll listen to that later. Just take me to the toilet. I forgot to wear diapers today. Mila was still clamoring to be taken to the bathroom, probably at her limit. But no matter how much she begs, I'm not taking her. Do whatever you want, I don't care. I'll never forgive you for this. I don't need your forgiveness. Just so you know, I'll never forgive you either. With those parting words to Mila, I headed to my room, grabbed the bare minimum, and left the parents-in-law's home. I half expected Trevor to call me after I left the parents-in-law's home on my own, but there was no contact at all. A month later, I had returned to my parents' house and was living a stress-free life. Life had been hard every day, so being at home was truly a joy. Then, on a day off, Trevor suddenly called. You're at your parents' house, right? What do you want, calling me out of the blue? Just get back here. I have something to talk about. He calls now, after all this time, saying he has something to talk about. Absolutely not taking my calls, but now acting all high and mighty, huh? Ignoring me for a whole month just shows how little you care. What a selfish person. Still, this is a good chance to end things properly with those two. I might as well tell them directly that it's over between us. Fueled by anger, I headed to my parents-in-law's home. Long time no see, it's me. Come in. Trevor answered the intercom, and I stepped into the in-laws' house. Mila, seeing me enter the living room, immediately started yelling. So you finally show up! Where have you been hiding all this time, you witch? In the past, Mila's shouting might have cowed me, but not anymore. Where? I went back to my parents' home. Just took off on your own? Do you have any idea how tough it's been here? If you're back, start taking care of me right away. That's what I've been trying to tell you. I won't be taking care of Mila. Ask Trevor to do that. You're to blame for this mess, so take responsibility! Mila flung another plastic bottle at me, but I dodged it effortlessly. Picking up the plastic bottle that had skittered across the floor, this time I chucked it back at Mila with all my might. I made sure not to hit her directly with the bottle. What the heck? That's not safe! Mila must have never expected it to be tossed back to her. She let out a voice that sounded quite shocked. You know it's dangerous. I avoided hitting you, but you didn't miss when you hit me, did you? You! What do you think you're doing? Throwing things at people? I'll call the police! Trevor, who had been watching the exchange with Mila, interjected, but if he was keen on calling the police, so was I. Acting like they're the victim. You're going to report me to the cops? Go right ahead. I'll also report Mila for attempted murder and assault with a plastic bottle. The mention of the police seemed to frighten Trevor and Mila, and they quickly quieted down. Always quick to blame me, but never reflecting on their own actions. Are they out of their minds? Please, not the police. I'm sorry. I'm asking you too. We went too far. Please, let's not involve the police. Truly selfish, aren't you? I don't need your apologies now. Instead of calling the cops, let's end this relationship. Write this down. With that, I pulled the divorce papers out of my bag and thrust them at the two. Divorce? Isn't that a bit hasty? For me, it's been too long coming. Come on, Trevor, sign this now. But how will you live after the divorce? You'll struggle without me, won't you? No way. It's harder living with someone who won't take my side and does nothing while Mila harasses me every day. I'm perfectly fine with getting a divorce. Once I made up my mind, nothing Trevor said could change my decision about the divorce. Trevor seemed to resign himself to this reality, watching how determined I was. His hands trembling, he signed and stamped the divorce papers. Mila, you saw clearly how Trevor signed the divorce papers, right? Now I'm a stranger to you both. Don't come asking me for any favors. If you dare to bother me about caregiving again, I won't hesitate to call the cops. With those words, I left my parents-in-law's house. Just before I exited, I caught a glimpse of Mila's face. Her ashen expression was priceless. A week later, I received a message from Trevor on WhatsApp. Drat, I'd forgotten to block him. Curious, despite myself, I opened WhatsApp. I'm really sorry for all the trouble Mom has caused. I regret not supporting you more, especially now that it's too late. Since the divorce, Mom's been even harsher, and it's taking a toll on me both mentally and physically. If you're willing, can we start over? I promise I'll be on your side this time. I had a sneaking suspicion this would happen, knowing Mila's character. Someone who believes they're the most important, she'd dictate to her own son without a shred of mercy. But what nonsense was he spouting now? Even if he said that, it was obvious he'd take Mila's side again. I had no intention of ever seeing their faces again, let alone reconciling. Annoyed by Trevor's message, I replied sharply. Don't be ridiculous. Just put her in a home, and don't ever contact me again. After sending the message, I blocked Trevor's WhatsApp. Of course, I blocked his calls too. With the child in my womb, A new chapter of my life was beginning.
My wife is ugly and her food tastes awful. As his wife, you should do better. The words of my uncle, who was red-faced from alcohol, were advocated by other men and their relatives. My husband, getting more excited from others agreeing him, spat out my complaints one after the other. He had a triumphant expression on his face. I took a deep breath in order to contain my embarrassment and anger. At that moment, my mother-in-law suddenly stood up from her chair and glared at my husband. "Is that all you've got to say?" With the words from my mother-in-law, the room got quiet all at once. My name is Emma, and I am a 40-year-old working in a medical office. I met my husband Tom, who is an office worker, 4 years older than me, through our common interest in tennis. We are married for 13 years. My husband and I adore children, but we were unable to have any, and I felt sorry for him. My in-laws, who live apart, are constantly concerned about us. Especially my mother-in-law and I have a good relationship, and we go out to lunch and shop together. My mother died when I was little, so my mother-in-law is like a real mother to me. My mother-in-law adored me as if I were her own child. Our marriage was not going bad, but after about 10 years, my husband became very bossy. Now he has absolutely no kindness to me. Furthermore, my husband has been working overtime and traveling more and more. He has been transferred to a different department at work 3 years ago. He doesn't come home half of the week. When he does return home, he says, "Hey, dinner. Hey, is the bath ready yet?" He treats me as if I were a servant. Once, I couldn't take it any longer and complained to my husband. "You're not a child anymore. You should at least prepare your own clothes." Then he said, "What are you saying? Your duty is to obey me as your husband. Don't complain. You're my wife." For an hour, my husband pointed his finger at me, raised his voice, and abused me. Not only that, but he would repeatedly bring up this incident whenever he is in a bad mood, and there was nothing I could do about it. Because my husband was so annoying and troublesome, I had no choice but to obey him. When I was sitting at the table for dinner one day, he asked, "What's with all the vegetables again? Am I a rabbit? Now get up and put the meat out already." "You have high cholesterol, so I thought it's better to cut back on the meat." As if to interrupt me, he got up from his chair and threw the meal I made onto the floor. "Nobody knows my body better than I do. I'm going to eat out." "Wait!" My husband ignored my attempts to stop him, leaving the house with only his wallet and cell phone. He closed the front door loudly behind him. Every day I had searched the internet for recipes that reduced salt in meat for my husband. His cholesterol was high according to the company's medical checkup. All of my efforts were worthless. I picked up the food that made a mess on the floor, feeling depressed. My husband returned home 3 hours later, humming a song, drunk. I had no choice but to pick up his coat he threw on the ground and realized that it had grilled meat and perfume smell. I had suspected in the past that my husband was cheating on me, but there was no proof, so I tried not to be concerned. However, the scent of the perfume made me suspect my husband of cheating even more strongly this time. Since then, when my husband gets in a bad mood, he would leave the house without saying anything, and he takes a bath as soon as he gets home every time. Oh, it's the same perfume. I could smell it, even from the laundry basket, without smelling his coat directly. You won't be able to sing carelessly in the shower soon. Gaining confidence that he is cheating, I decided to get the evidence to put him in hell. 3 weeks later, we were heading to in-laws' house. Every New Year's Day, all the relatives gather at my husband's parents' house for a party. All the relatives had already gathered when we arrived. On the table, there was a colorful and delicious-looking New Year's dinner prepared by my mother-in-law. My husband and I wished my in-laws and other relatives a Happy New Year. "You don't have to be restrained, Emma. Go ahead and eat them." "Yes, thank you very much." My husband looked at me with dissatisfied expression as I was sitting down appreciating my mother-in-law. "Hey, where are the chopsticks?" my husband exclaimed. I went to the kitchen, got them from my mother-in-law, and gave them to my husband. "Hey, where are the cups?" he asked. "Can't you do that without being asked? You should care about your surroundings." Even though all of our relatives were there, my husband kept abusing me. "I'm not a psychic. You should at least tell me or I won't understand." I contained my irritation and handed him a glass, and he sipped the sake the relatives had poured him with a delicious smile. "Would you like a glass too, Emma?" My uncle also offered me a drink, but my husband declined before I said anything. "She's my driver, so," he said. My mother-in-law and other female relatives were busily working in the kitchen. They were preparing lunch and bringing drinks and snacks to the men. I also wore an apron I brought from home and worked non-stop. My father-in-law and the other men were having a great time and drank one bin after another. I could hear the drunk guys laughing loudly. I am so sorry that you guys have to be busy here. I believe we should take a break. My mother-in-law prepared some hot tea for us. When we were drinking the tea and having small talk, I heard my husband's voice from the living room. Let's go around revealing things we can't normally say. Let's relieve stress talking about them. It's a new year. The men rejoiced at my husband's suggestion. The loser of the rock, paper, scissors is allowed to say whatever he wants. My husband, who is weak with alcohol, then he thinks was so drunk he couldn't even speak properly. Sounds like a lot of fun. My mother-in-law smiled and seemed interested. Actually, I had something planned for this New Year's Eve party too. Then my husband said something unexpected and I decided to use this opportunity. I took something from my bag and put it in my apron pocket. Rock, paper, scissors. With a loud yell, the game started. The losers complained about their salaries, or their bosses, one after the other. So true, so true. The listeners agreed as the loser complained. Finally, my husband lost the rock, paper, scissors, and it was his turn to present his daily complaints. I was both excited and nervous about what he was going to say. My complaint is that my wife is unattractive, and her food tastes bad. My mind went blank from shock. My father-in-law flusteredly cleared his throat. When you guys got married, you were complimenting her beauty and cooking skills. That was a long time ago, Dad. She now only serves tasteless food, full of leaves like rabbit food. My uncle's expression darkened when he heard this. That's awful. Being his wife, she should do better. My uncle's words were advocated by the men. No one knew I had been thinking about my husband's health and cooking every day. Therefore, people were saying whatever they wanted. Listening to that, I was embarrassed and angry, wanting to just run away. Following my husband, the conversation changed to complaints about their wives. I work hard every day, so increase my allowance. Stop whining and just obey me. The father-in-law was smiling as he listened, but the wives on the other end remained silent and looked down. Then it was back to my husband's turn. Everyone is fortunate to have children, he stated. My wife is a defective woman, incapable of having children. My husband should know how badly I wanted children. I had never imagined he'd abuse me like that. Sadness and frustration filled my heart. I took a deep breath and tried to keep the tears from welling up in my eyes. Everything will be fine, Emma. My mother-in-law took my hand gently. She sighed deeply and stood up from her chair, approaching my husband with a dark expression I had never seen before. Is that all you've got to say? The men were surprised by how mother-in-law yelled, as she usually appeared kind and obedient to their father-in-law. The lively atmosphere changed dramatically and became quiet. Hey, we're all having a good time, my father-in-law said to my mother-in-law. There's no need to be angry. What? You guys are the only ones having a good time. You're the one who had to put a stop to them. Shame on you. Defective woman? How could you say that? Yes, that is right. With a troubled expression on his face, the father-in-law looks down. Can't you see that we, too, have a lot to say to you men, right? The woman who had been silently nodding burst into applause. Now, don't be afraid to speak up. Let us say whatever we want, and we will feel better. Mother-in-law's words triggered the women to express their true feelings one after the other. Increase your income if you want more allowance. Why don't you just do things on your own if you don't want us to complain? I would want you to do things for me instead. When the wives made precise complaints about them, the men went speechless and apologized one after the other. Only my husband remained cold and did not seem to care. What's bad about telling the truth? Why would I apologize? No one replied to my husband's question, and they exchanged awkward glances. I will not apologize, and I will repeat myself. Such an unattractive wife, a bad cook, and a defective woman who can't have children. My husband humiliated me, repeatedly pointing his fingers at me. At this point, the sadness and frustration I had been holding back turned into uncontrollable rage. You have no right to say such a thing to me. I approached my husband calmly, secretly controlling my cell phone, which I had hidden in my apron pocket. It's not fair that you only get to relieve stress. I would love to too, and you wouldn't mind, right? You have complaints about me? Don't be a fool. I would understand appreciation, but not complaints. Oh, let's see. I took an envelope out of my pocket and spread the pictures that were inside on the table where all the relatives were seated. The photo showed my husband entering a seedy hotel room with a woman in his arms. Another photo showed my husband exiting the apartment where she lived, holding her hand. I installed a GPS device in his car after gaining confidence about the affair so that I could always find him and take photos to prove the affair. I had brought it with me, for discussing it with my mother-in-law later in private, but I had to do this in this situation. All the relatives were surprised, the room became noisy. My husband was frantically collecting the photos. It is common for a husband to cheat on his wife, right? Guys, come on. My husband asked for agreement to the men, but no one agreed. When my uncle, who had previously supported my husband, was critical about cheating, saying no, that can't be forgiven. The men nodded strongly in response to his uncle's words, but my husband remained steadfast. You guys can't even cheat on your wives? Haha, shame on you guys. My uncle stood up when he heard my husband's words. Who is the most shameful, huh? That's right, the men exclaimed. They stared coldly at my husband. My husband appeared to be trying hard to appear strong and right. I was disgusted by such demeanor, so I confronted my husband with additional evidence. Actually, I got a phone call a week ago from Madoka-san, your new love. I heard you've been dating for 3 years. Madoka? Who is that? Don't try to fool me. I heard you had a crush on your subordinate, and Madoka-san is 7 months pregnant. I'm not sure what you're talking about. My husband was attempting making excuses, but he couldn't hide his agitation. She requested that I divorce you. I heard you refused to acknowledge the child, telling her that your wife wouldn't accept the divorce. I didn't say that. Oh, that's funny. I thought you didn't know her name. Saying that, I took my cell phone out from my apron pocket. I put it on speaker and turned the volume up to maximum, so that everyone in the room can hear. Did you hear what I just said, Madoka-san? She sniffles, possibly crying, and says quietly, yes. Actually, I had called the girl the day before New Year's and told her I would call her today. She wanted to know what my husband was really thinking, and so she agreed. And so, I secretly called the girl right before I questioned him. When the girl overheard the entire conversation, she burst into tears and became enraged. She complained, my wife and I are getting a divorce, and he asked me to wait until then. I never said anything like that. You, as my wife, would understand, right? Why would I? You were the only one who betrayed me. When I said this, he looked down and became silent. I will never forgive you, said the girl, and hung up. She had believed my husband's words. Here is the divorce paper. Fill it out right now. When I tried to make him to sign the divorce papers I had prepared, he started to be furious towards me. Don't be ridiculous. I can't just immediately write this down. How dare you say such a thing after all this? I'll have you pay me 2 million yen in alimony. No, I'm never going to divorce you. I don't have that much money. Her husband began to stamp his feet as if he were a child and whined. I had never seen my husband act like this before, and I almost laughed. But I continued to demand divorce and alimony from him. Tom, you're not a little kid. Shame on you. My mother-in-law must have been frustrated by my husband's pitiful demeanor. She scolded him with an exasperated expression on her face. You have no right to refuse divorce or alimony. Accept reality with dignity. It's not that easy, Mom. Hey, you would understand how I feel, right, Dad? No way. I mean, how could I? Be responsible for what you've done. The husband reluctantly signed the divorce papers and agreed to pay alimony, holding back his tears. I had thought that this gathering would be a great time to reveal my husband's affair, so I pushed him even harder. Ah, I terminated our lease at the end of this month, because you don't need 2 homes to return to, right? When I said this, the woman applauded and the men sighed deeply. My husband left my in-laws' house as if he were fleeing from everyone's attention. The following day, I submitted divorce papers to the city office, and I moved into a rental apartment which I had already signed a contract to. I also requested 1.5 million yen in alimony from my ex-husband's unfaithful partner. It would have been a devastating blow for the girl. She had resigned from her job after becoming pregnant, but I couldn't forgive her. My ex-husband tried to rely on the girl after his apartment was terminated. He immediately wrote the child recognition paper right after divorce. However, the girl eventually dumped him and demanded 1,500,000 yen per month in child support. Furthermore, my ex-husband resigned from his job after the affair became public. It became difficult for him to remain at the company. His parents abandoned him after that, and he was unable to find a new job, so he was sleeping in an internet cafe and working part-time jobs to pay alimony. Susan, my ex-mother-in-law, informed me that my ex-husband has gotten higher cholesterol levels and harmed his body. He had been living a self-indulgent lifestyle since our divorce. Susan and I, on the other hand, became friends after the divorce and became even closer than when I was married to Tom. Now, I am content to live a peaceful life while enjoying my solitude.
I'm leaving all my inheritance, the house and the car, to Christina. If you oppose, we're getting a divorce. I can manage just fine without you."
My husband Darren suddenly declared he would give away the inheritance I received from my grandfather to Christina, our eldest son's fiancée. The man who was once so kind had turned utterly selfish. But now I know this is his true nature. I decided to play my trump card and bring both my husband and Christina down a notch. First, it seemed like the two of them had a big misunderstanding. So I decided to correct that. Imagining the look of despair on their faces, I began to speak. My name is Shiri. I'm 45 and work part-time while managing the household. Darren comes from a wealthy family that owns a business and he works in his parents' company. We met in college where I was raised in a very average household. He was a gentleman when we met, and I liked his laid-back demeanor. He never looked down on me, so we got along well. He was a bit naive, having been raised as a cherished son, but I loved even that about him. When my grandfather suddenly fell ill and passed away during our college years, Darren was there for me. I was devastated, but Darren helped me get through it. My grandfather left me an inheritance including a house and a car. Though the house is old, it's comfortable, so we moved in. Darren now uses my grandfather's car for his daily commute. We married when I was 24 and soon after our eldest son Tim was born. I quit my job to focus on raising Tim and taking care of the house. Tim grew up to be a kind man and works for a private company, not Darren's family business. Once Tim was grown, I started working part-time and began to socialize outside the home. I wanted to see the world beyond our home. Darren often had work-related social events, but he told me not to bother attending, so I didn't have many external connections. His business was struggling, so I wanted to contribute to our financial stability. I made some good friends at work and life was going well until something shattered it. One day, Tim called me.
"I want to introduce you to someone I'm thinking of marrying."
Really? I felt sentimental thinking my son had found someone special. I wasn't upset, I was actually happy. I was looking forward to meeting her, but when she arrived, she was, let's say, a character. Her name is Christina, and her father is an executive at a large corporation. She met Tim through work, and although they work at different companies, they continued to see each other and started dating. That wasn't an issue. Her personality was, in a word, Christina was a drama queen. The moment we met, Christina greeted me with an exaggerated "Hello, you must be Sherry, right? Nice to meet you," while batting her eyelashes. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of this type of behavior, but I thought she must have some redeeming qualities if my son chose her. However, Christina continued to be rude. She complained about the tea and snacks I offered, saying, these aren't tasty, not my style at all. She even mocked me for working part-time. So you work, Sherry? Even though Darren makes good money, are you bad with finances or something? When I explained that I wanted to socialize since I had been home raising Tim, she dismissed me, saying, "You're just a workaholic." Furthermore, her table manners were atrocious. It became apparent during dinner. Darren may be naive in some ways, but he was well taught in table manners. Christina, on the other hand, had a strange way of holding her fork and knife and talked with her mouth full. She had so many etiquette issues that I didn't want to share another meal with her. Tim finally said,
"Christina, you can't keep being rude like this."
She finally quieted down but was clearly in a bad mood. Later, Tim apologized to me.
"Oh, I'm sorry for how Christina acted. She's not usually like that. She's supposed to be more polite and considerate."
There is no need for you to apologize, Tim, but I don't want her to be part of our family.
I get it. I'll talk to Christina."
Tim agreed with me. A few days later, Christina came to apologize, led by Tim. "My pet cat has been sick and I've been in a bad mood. I also don't get along with my strict mother, so I took it out on you, Shiri. I'm really sorry." She bowed her head several times, showing remorse. Darren and I decided to forgive her since she apologized properly. After that, Christina behaved well and was kind to me. My negative impression of her faded and I gave my blessings for their marriage. Eventually, Tim and Christina got married and started a happy life. But that was the beginning of a nightmare. A month after their marriage, Christina showed up at our house with one cat. "This is Mia, my pet. She's not listening to me anymore and I can't keep her. Can you take her?" "Oh, wait, you're so worried when she was sick and now you're giving her up?" I was puzzled, but Darren said,
"Well, why not? We can take care of her."
"Taking care of an animal isn't that simple." I objected, but Darren overruled me and took the cat on the spot.
When a family member is in need, you help them out. You take care of this cat. I'm not interested in cats.
Darren said this and retreated to his room. He and Christina seemed to get along well, maybe because they both come from wealthy backgrounds, but treating an animal's life so carelessly made me lose trust in him. I tried to find a new home for Mia the cat but had no luck. In the end, I took care of her myself. Mia turned out to be adorable and grew attached to me. It was a good thing, but Christina continued to make unreasonable demands like asking for money or help with chores. Darren indulged her every whim and dumped all the responsibilities on me. I grew increasingly frustrated and suspicious of their motives. I decided to consult him and do some digging on those two. One day, I came home from work to find Christina at our house again. Actually, I had something to discuss with both Christina and Darren, so the timing was perfect. But then Darren dropped a bombshell.
I want to give all my inheritance, the house, and the car to Christina.
What? I was stunned. You mean the inheritance, house, and car that I inherited from my grandfather?
Yes, I want to give Christina everything your granddad left you.
Darren said this as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Christina seemed eager to accept, saying, I would like to have it all by the end of this month if possible. She was back to her old self. I was furious at their audacity. Darren, seeing my displeasure, yelled,
Shut up! I'm giving everything to Christina. If you oppose, we're getting a divorce. I can manage just fine without you.
The man who was once so kind had turned utterly selfish, but now I know this is his true nature. I decided to play my trump card and bring both my husband and Christina down a notch. First, it seemed like the two of them had a big misunderstanding, so I decided to correct them. Imagining the look of despair on their faces, I began to speak. The inheritance, house, and car are all in my name, inherited from my grandfather. Darren, you can't just give them to Christina.
But I'm your husband. We're family, so I should be able to.
Inheritances usually go to blood relatives, so it can't be yours. Christina and Darren were dumbfounded. They had been clueless, charging ahead without knowing the basics. In the end, they were just naive, spoiled children. They had been raised in privileged environments and lacked common sense, but I had more to say. I decided to add another counterattack. Wait a moment. I went to my room and returned with several documents, showing them one in particular. The color drained from their faces. It was a report from a private investigator on Darren's infidelity. Arms crossed, I showed them a photo of the two of them looking quite cozy together. Darren started to stammer out an excuse.
Oh, when I'm with Christina, I feel glamorous and at ease. Being with you feels like we're struggling, and it stresses me out. I mean, you are a responsible woman, and I thought you would handle all the difficult stuffs. Plus, you inherited things from your grandfather, so I married you. But I have reached my limit.
His words turned into outright insults against me. It was clear Darren had been using me all along and felt no remorse. Instead of apologizing, you're making me uncomfortable? I will gladly divorce you and demand alimony. I pulled out divorce papers, already filled out on my end. You seem to want a luxurious life, so you would probably prefer to be without a commoner like me? You even said you wanted a divorce just now, but you're not getting anything from my grandfather. Darren looked at Christina, who was throwing a tantrum. Why is this so different from what we discussed? Now we get nothing and have to pay alimony? They both seemed panicked. They're wealthy. They should be able to afford alimony and buy their own houses and cars. Why the rush? I knew why. The investigation revealed more than just infidelity. I pulled out another document. Christina, you have debts, don't you? The investigation showed you frequenting consumer loan companies. You were planning to sell my house and car to pay off your debts, weren't you? Both Christina and Darren were speechless. Also, you two are just figureheads at your companies, right? You got your jobs through family connections and collect high salaries without actually working. Your colleagues are unhappy about it. Darren probably didn't want me to meet his coworkers to keep his poor reputation a secret. He pretended to care for me while hiding inconvenient truths. I had said all I needed to say. The more I investigated, the more their failures came to light. It was beyond infuriating. By the way, Tim knows all about it. He also thought something was off with you two, so he and I requested the investigation. The two grew even more frantic, but others knew about their deeds as well. Since it's a big deal, I thought I would teach that too. I thought I would share that when the front door opened and 3 people walked into the living room. One was Tim, and the other 2 were Darren's father, Kyle, and Christina's mother, Matilda. Both looked furious. We heard everything from Tim. You two have been having affairs, accumulating debt, and acting recklessly behind our backs. As Kyle confronted them, Darren and Christina looked at Tim as if to say, "Why did you tell them?" Tim spoke sternly. "I had a talk with Mom about this. We decided to inform both families about your and Dad's wrongdoing and take some sort of action. I can't forgive Christina's affairs and debts either." Tim was unusually angry. Christina hesitantly asked Tim, "Hey, when you say both families, does that mean people other than your mom know too?" Tim nodded. "Yes, in your case, your dad, your grandfather, and your grandmother know. Soon enough, the whole family will know, won't they?" Christina covered her face with her hands, looking like she was about to cry. "If everyone finds out about this, I can't go on living." Matilda glared at Christina. "Christina, you have really done it now." I heard that Christina's mom Matilda is strict about manners and would never tolerate infidelity. "Ever since you were little, you have been selfish. I was worried you wouldn't grow up to be a decent adult. I was strict with you because I loved you, even though you kept rebelling against me." Christina looked startled. It seemed like she finally realized her parents' love, but unfortunately, it was too late. Confronted by their parents, Darren and Christina began to spill the details of their affair. According to them, they had been having an affair since Christina was in college. They met and hit it off at a work-related party that Darren attended. Darren, who had grown tired of my down-to-earth values, was attracted to a young and wealthy Christina, and they quickly entered into an affair. Since then, Christina had been squandering Darren's money and even racked up debts. Darren was no better, handing over large sums of money like that. I didn't notice because the money Darren used was from his personal savings, not our joint account. Both had never struggled financially, so they seemed to think money would just keep coming in. They continued to accumulate debt until they were cornered and set their sights on my inheritance. They thought they could manipulate me by threatening divorce. Christina even married Tim for his money. Tim works for a big corporation and seems financially stable, so Christina approached him. Not only that, she thought it would make it easier to continue her affair. What's even more unforgivable is that Darren was the one who suggested the marriage. Darren had the audacity to use his own son to facilitate his affair, but it seems Christina didn't like me at first sight and acted rudely. She almost jeopardized the marriage, so she pretended to repent to secure it. After hearing everything, Kyle was furious beyond words. "Oh, Darren is so selfish, I'm firing him." Hearing this, Darren was shocked. You're kidding, right? I gave money to Christina, so I don't have any savings left. You got me this job through your connections, and you've been paying me well. Look, I've been lenient because you're my son, but this is the last straw. Being soft on you isn't helping you. Plus, you know our company is struggling, right? We can't afford you anymore. The staff is fed up. You're fired. You're in your 40s. Figure it out yourself. Matilda said the same thing to Christina. "You've been messing with Tim and causing a lot of trouble for Sherry. Keeping you in the company will only bring harm. My husband and I have decided to fire you. Plus, there are allegations that you have been embezzling company funds. Multiple employees have tested that you have extorted money from them." "Oh, what? How did you find out?" In her panic, Christina confessed. She was trembling. "You are going to the police. Just because we are family doesn't mean I'll go easy on you." Faced with her crimes, Christina slumped, defeated. Then I served Darren with divorce papers again. Tim also pulled out divorce papers and showed them to Christina. I can never consider Darren as family again. Let's get this divorce over with. I feel the same, Christina. I can't love a woman who cheats with her own father and commits crimes. Darren and Christina hesitated, but when Matilda sternly said, "You have caused enough trouble. Sign the divorce papers," they complied. Tim and I submitted the papers to the courthouse that day and cut ties with them. As a result of a family meeting, Darren and Christina were disowned. Christina was lectured by Matilda for over 2 hours and then handed over to the police. Darren was kicked out of the house and now has to fend for himself. In the end, Darren and Christina, who once loved each other deeply, broke up. They blamed each other for their wrongdoings, which seemed to be the cause of their fights. Their parents apologized to Tim and me. They bowed their heads repeatedly, saying they had caused us great trouble by raising their children poorly. We forgive you. The blame lies solely with Darren and Christina, we said. Tim also said,
I don't blame you all, since you have properly disciplined them.
no matter how spoiled they were, Darren and Christina were the ones who actually caused the problems. They committed crimes of their own accord, not because their parents told them to, so we didn't blame the parents. Christina, due to her embezzlement and extortion, now had a criminal record and is headed for prison. Born into a privileged life, they ended up on a downward spiral. Matilda said their family would cover the compensation owed to Tim and me for now, but they would have to pay it back once they're out of jail. Darren managed to find another job, but at a much lower salary. I heard he's living in a rundown apartment, struggling to make the compensation payments and living a poor life. I think it's all their own doing, and I hope they continue to suffer. As for me, I have managed to keep my home and am living a peaceful life with Tim and Mia. With my part-time income and Tim's salary, we're not struggling financially. We spend our weekends having fun with Mia. Despite being caught up in a terrible incident, we have managed to resolve it and return to a happy, normal life. I hope this continues for a long time to come.
I have a mother who lives alone. Contemplating her circumstances, I approached my husband about the idea of living closer to my mother's house. However, he flatly retorted, "We are not moving near your mother's house. We should live with my parents instead." I was shocked. He just disregarded my feelings and tried to impose his will. With a deep sense of frustration, I decided to take matters into my own hands. My name is Isabella. I'm 30 years old. I live with my husband, Mark, and our 2-month-old son, Chris. Mark and I work at the same company. Although we are in different departments, we often work together on projects, and we share a number of acquaintances. We had a grand wedding celebration with our colleagues, and I was determined to make our married life a happy one. Initially, Mark and I lived in his apartment. However, as it was quite cramped, we decided to move. We wanted to have a child eventually, so we agreed to move into a larger apartment and consider buying a house later on. Casually browsing property listings on my smartphone, I started a conversation with Mark. "I don't want to quit my job even after we have a child," I said. Mark responded with a smile. "You love your work, Isabella. You should do what you like." "But it seems that the competition for daycare spots is pretty high. We have to think about that too if I'm planning to return to work." "Well, I guess you're right. We'll figure it out somehow," Mark nonchalantly replied, fiddling with his smartphone. I then decided to bring up an idea that I had been contemplating for a while. "You know, there's something I've been wanting to talk about," I began. "Oh? What is it?" he asked. "I'd like us to live closer to my mother's house, just in case something happens." "Why would we do that?" he inquired. "Well, you know my father passed away a few years ago, so my mother is living alone now. I want to be able to rush over if something happens." "Your mother seems fine. There's no need to worry about that now." "Well, yes, but I think it's better to have someone close by who can support us when we have a child." His response was noticeably reluctant. I tried to persuade him further. "If it's just the two of us raising the child, it could be quite difficult, right? If my mom is nearby, I believe it'll ease your burden," I insisted. "Nah, I can't do that," he countered. "What? Why not?" "Because if we live near her mom, we'll have to see her often. That would be stressful." "I understand your concern, but I promise I'll try my best not to burden you." "When we have a child, you won't be able to work for a while, which means we'll be living on my income alone, right? So why should I have to deal with the extra stress?" "Well," in response to my silence, he coldly stated, "We're not moving anywhere near your mother's house." "But," I protested, "after giving birth, you won't be able to contribute to the rent or the living expenses, right? Yet, you're the only one thinking about what's convenient for you. Don't you think that's a bit selfish?" "Hold on, what kind of logic is that?" Sure, I wouldn't be able to work for a few months after giving birth, but does he really need to be so negative about it? Don't you think we should try harder to cooperate as a married couple? My husband's actions didn't make any sense, and I felt that if I continued to speak up, things would not progress in a positive way. We're newlyweds. I don't want to quarrel at this point. Fine. I got it. Leaving these words behind, I left the room. I couldn't bear this atmosphere any longer. Eventually, I gave up on living near my mother's home and decided to settle in an area close to both of our workplaces. After moving, work and our marital relationship were going fairly well, and we were leading relatively peaceful days. One day, I found out I was pregnant. My work was going well, so I felt a little guilty, but my child was my top priority. Taking handovers into account, I worked up until the last possible moment before my family leave. Since I had more free time after starting my family leave, I started visiting my mother more often. My husband Mark was coming home past midnight almost every day due to overtime work. If things continued this way, I would undoubtedly have to single-handedly raise our child after giving birth. As it would be my first child, everything was new to me and I felt a lot of anxiety. One day, I was visiting my mother at home and I blurted out my real feelings to her. Mom, I'm really looking forward to the baby coming, but I'm also very anxious. What's wrong, Isabella? That's not like you. You have Mark, don't you? Mark seems busy with work, and when I asked him to take care of our baby together after giving birth, he yelled at me, saying, "How can I, a man, do that?" As I explained, my voice trembled and my mother looked worried. I decided to express my feelings clearly to my mother. "Hey, Mom, can I come back here for a while after the baby is born?" "Well," my mother tilted her head and thought for a moment. "It's going to be tough at first, and it would be a bit of a hassle for me to commute to your place every day. I would be grateful if you could come over to our house, Isabella." "Really? Can I stay?" "Of course. I'd be happy to spend time with my grandchild, and nothing would make me happier than being able to support my daughter." "Thank you, Mom. I'll talk to Mark about it when I get home today." By revealing my anxiety to my mother, my heart felt significantly lighter. Right, I should talk to Mark properly. As a couple, we need to consider our child's future carefully. That night, I talked to Mark about the situation with my mother. However, his reaction was not what I was hoping for. "What? Go back to your parents' house? You must be kidding." "I'm serious." I leaned forward trying to convince my husband. "I'm nervous because it's my first time, and I need to rest for a month after giving birth. I don't think I'll be able to do the housework. That's why I want to go back to my mother's house for a while." "That's ridiculous. Who's going to cook for me? Who's going to do the laundry? Can't you manage on your own for just a little while, Mark?" "Huh? I'm out there working and now you want me to do housework too? You're a monster," Mark huffed. But in my confusion, Mark sighed heavily. I get it. I should help out, right?" "Huh? Help out?" "That's what I'm saying. I'll assist with childcare. I'll handle the chores and childcare for the first month after birth, okay? That way there's no need for you to go back to your mother's home, right?" "Well, I guess so." "Okay, then it's settled. I'll help out. This discussion's over." I understand." I wasn't entirely convinced, but the best thing for our family would be if we could work together to raise our child. I felt some apprehension, but I decided to trust Mark's words. I gave up the idea of going back to my mother's home and called my mom to explain the situation. "I see. I was looking forward to your visit, so it's a bit disappointing. But it's a good thing, right? Mark said he'll help, hasn't he?" "That's true, but I thought it would be more reassuring with you, Mom, given your experience with childcare." "Oh, there are plenty of couples who take on everything from the start without returning home. You should take advantage of Mark's support and try your best together." "Okay, I understand." As I was about to hang up, my mother stopped me. "Oh, and what's up?" "Always tell me when something happens. I'm always on your side, Isabella." "Thanks, Mom. I'll try my best with Mark." I needed to work hard to keep from worrying my mom, and so I resolved to take on childcare with my husband. A few days later, our first son was born, and the tumultuous life of parenting began. As promised, Mark did help out, albeit in a limited way. His involvement amounted to doing some light shopping after work and taking out the garbage, tasks I had managed. However, Mark was stubbornly hands-off when it came to childcare. He had never changed a diaper or even made a bottle. I was tired from the unfamiliarity of childcare and had no energy to complain. This kind of parenting life continued for about 2 months. One evening, after putting our son to bed and returning to the living room, Mark arrived home. "I'm home." "Welcome home. I'll start making dinner, so just wait a bit." "What? At least keep something ready to heat up. You're not good at managing things, are you?" "Well, what can I do? Our little Chris just fell asleep." It's been 2 months and you still can't get him to sleep properly? Never mind. I'll go take a bath first. Have dinner ready by the time I'm out." With that, Mark left the room. What was that about? Who does he think he is? Why does he demand perfection from me when he doesn't contribute to childcare at all? My irritation built, and I wanted to throw something, but I couldn't wake up Chris, who had just fallen asleep. I held back my anger. 30 minutes later, without saying a word, Mark started eating his dinner right after he got out of the bath. As I stared at him, shocked by his behavior. "Oh yeah, I have something to talk about." Mark stopped me. "Talk? What all of a sudden?" "I got a call from Dad today. Seems Mom fell and can't move her leg well." "What? Your mother?" According to my husband Mark, his mother had gone shopping with a neighborhood friend, had a dramatic fall, and was immediately taken to the hospital in an ambulance. Even after several hours, her leg isn't moving and the doctor diagnosed that she might need assistance going forward. I see. That's hard. Your father must be having a rough time." To be honest, I was more worried about my father-in-law than my mother-in-law. From the beginning, my mother-in-law did not like me. She was even cold to me at our marriage introduction. When I announced my pregnancy, "We don't need a girl, do we?" she was the type to say nonchalantly. The one who always scolded my mother-in-law and stood by me was my father-in-law. "Let me know if you need anything. I'll be there for you if you need me." Each time he met me, my father-in-law encouraged me like this. If my stay-at-home mother-in-law couldn't move, my father-in-law would be really struggling. While recalling the happenings at my in-laws' home, Mark dropped an unbelievable proposition. "Here's the thing. I had a great idea. Let's live together with my parents at my home." What? "Don't you think it's a good plan? I'm worried about Mom, and you, Isabella, are not working now. If we live together, it will reduce Dad's burden, and he would be happy." "Wait just a minute. You're joking, right? The reason I'm not working is to take care of our son, Chris. I can't suddenly decide to live with your parents." "But it's been 2 months already. You must have some free time now. Right now, Mom is the priority. You should understand that." Is he serious? When I suggested living near my mom, he outright refused, but now it suits him just perfectly. Mark is not the type to visit his home frequently, so it was convenient so far, but living with my mother-in-law is out of the question. Knowing Mark, if we lived together, he would certainly side with his mother and be harsh on me. Unable to bear it any longer, I vented my frustrations. "Don't mess with me. You flat out denied when I wanted to live near my mother, but now it's okay when it's about you?" What? What's that about? Your mother is fine, isn't she?" "But, unlike your house, my mom lives alone. What if something happens? You're not considering my anxieties, are you?" "Shut up. Listen here. You married me and became my wife. You should stop arguing and listen to what I say." At that moment, any residual affection I had for my husband vanished instantly. He doesn't consider my feelings, let alone seeing me as an equal. I cannot continue a marital relationship with him. Seeing my silence, Mark probably thought I had agreed and dropped this line. "Anyway, it's decided that we're going to live together. We're moving as soon as possible, so get the stuff packed by tomorrow." "I understand." "You should have just obediently listened to me from the start." With that, Mark left for the bedroom without even clearing the dinner dishes. The next day, once Mark left for work, I packed the minimum necessary stuff and left the house. Of course, just for me and my son. When I returned to my mother's house with my son, my mother was initially shocked but accepted our situation once I explained. As he returned home from work, my husband, Mark, called after realizing that my son and I were not there.
Hey, where are you right now?
At my mother's place, Mark.
What? What the heck are you doing without my permission? Get back here right now.
Well, our son's already asleep, and it's late. So no. Besides, I'm not planning on returning.
What the?
Mark yelled at me over the phone, something that was rare for me to oppose him.
Listen here, if you don't come back right now, we're getting a divorce. You got it?
A divorce?
That's right. Didn't I tell you? I'm moving to my parents' house. If we divorce now, you'll be jobless. That's gonna be a problem for you, huh?
I couldn't see his face, but I could tell from his tone of voice that he was smirking. To him, I responded coldly. I don't see that as a problem.
What?
I have no objections to the divorce. So please, send the divorce papers to the court.
What are you saying? You're the one who's going to be in trouble if we get a divorce.
Maybe he thought that if he provoked me with a blaming tone, I would listen to him. I was thoroughly disgusted by his naive thinking. If you want to move to your parents' house, go ahead. I won't.
What? You think you could just do that?
I don't need your permission. After all, we're getting a divorce. Why should I listen to what a stranger has to say?
Who do you think you are talking like that?
My patience with Mark, who still looked down on me, had reached its limit. Enough is enough. Who the hell do you think you are? How much more do you have to belittle someone before you're satisfied? I didn't get married to become your slave. Stop treating women like they're stupid.
What's going on? Isabella, calm down.
Calm down? I can't keep quiet after being belittled this much. If we can't support each other as a couple, then I don't need a man like you. Divorce? I'd be more than happy to. Live by yourself at your parents' house. Never involve me again. With that, I hung up the phone. Mark kept calling persistently, but I ignored all of them. Then he started to send me disturbingly affectionate texts. Isabella, I can't live without you. You don't have to live with my parents. Please come back. I understand. Let's live with your mother, just the three of us. 1 month later. His love messages abruptly stopped, and he unexpectedly agreed to the divorce. It was all thanks to my father-in-law. When Mark complained about the situation to him, he ended up getting scolded instead.
Listen, Mark, you can't just impose the idea of living together on someone.
But Dad!
Oh, shut up. You need to learn more about the world, and that's why Isabella left you. It's pitiful.
My stern father-in-law, after scolding my husband, instructed him to proceed with the divorce. My husband, unable to defy his father, grudgingly agreed to the divorce. I filed the divorce papers that were mailed to us, and we were officially no longer a couple. Afterwards, I received an apology from my father-in-law.
Isabella, I'm truly sorry. My foolish son must have caused you trouble, hasn't he?
It's all right, sir. It's all water under the bridge now.
Live your life your way, Isabella, and thank you for everything.
I can't express enough the gratitude to my father-in-law, who has shown nothing but respect until the end. The woman I am today is thanks to him. As for me, I'm in the thick of it, juggling work and motherhood as a single mom. With help from my mother, I strive daily to become a better mother for my son. Being married and being a couple doesn't guarantee happiness. I don't need a husband to be happy. Just having my beloved son and mother by my side is more than enough for me.
One day, my husband, Robert, came home with his ex-girlfriend and her child. Heads up, if you leave me, the three of us could live happily ever after. Even Mom would get to hold a grandchild. My husband pressured me to divorce him, so I agreed. Why? Because I have an ace up my sleeve that he knows nothing about. I can't help but look forward to the look on his face when he finds out. The anticipation is just too thrilling. My name is Amelia. I'm 35 years old. I've been married to Robert, who is 5 years my junior, for 3 years now. We don't have any kids yet. After a while into our marriage, my mother-in-law became pretty pushy and wanted a grandchild. Amelia, you've been married for 3 years, right? When will I see a grandkid? How much longer do you want to keep me waiting? Lately, she's been rushing me with a phone call every other day asking if a grandchild is on the way yet. I couldn't take it anymore, and I talked to Robert about it. Robert, I got another call from your mom today. It's becoming so frequent, it's making me feel down every time the phone rings. Don't worry about it. We agreed to have kids at our own pace. Robert reassures me, but I still feel uneasy. We're not on bad terms as a couple, so it's not impossible for us to have a child. Could it be that one of us has fertility issues? Just when I started thinking about that, my mother-in-law suggested we should get a fertility test. Hey, Robert, your mom suggested we get a fertility test today. I think I want to take it. There's no need. We'll have a baby when it's time. Then you go ahead and tell her that. I couldn't help but raise my voice at Robert. He doesn't seem worried about not having a child. And when it comes to his mom, he doesn't seem worried about not having a child. And when it comes to his mom, he thinks it's best to ignore her. It's me who's left feeling miserable. Doubting Robert's reliability, I decided to go for a fertility test without telling him. If the issue is with me, I want to tackle it sooner rather than later. Plus, I'm older than Robert, so the pressure is really on. To cut to the chase, my test results were fine, so maybe the issue is on Robert's end. So, Robert, about that fertility test we talked about the other day? When I bring it up, Robert doesn't even try to hide his irritation. Really? This again? Haven't I told you I'm sick of hearing baby, baby? Makes me not even want to try for a kid. Let's drop it, okay? Robert shuts down, not willing to hear me out. All I wanted to do was share the test results. Why is he so angry? I don't want this tension hanging over our relationship. Ultimately, I decided to keep the test results from Robert. Ignoring my feelings, my mother-in-law calls. Amelia, what's happening with having kids? I hate to say it, but at your age, your window is closing fast. Could it be your age that's the problem? I wanted to say I'm not the issue, but that would mean indirectly pointing the finger at Robert. That would surely get back to him. So I hold my tongue enduring her remarks. Even Robert knows I'm looking forward to grandchildren, so why did he marry an older woman who can't have kids? My mother-in-law, convinced I'm the problem, won't stop nagging. Her complaints are now seeping into Robert as well. Robert, can you please tell your mother to stop talking about babies? It hurts to be talked about like that when I want kids too. Not only has mother-in-law been bad-mouthing me, but now even Robert is starting to blame me. Well, Mom has a point. My friends were saying at the reunion that it's harder to have kids with an older wife. Robert now firmly believes I'm the issue, swayed not just by his mom, but also old classmates. At this point, there's no way I can ask him to get tested. Eventually, every time he goes to his parents' house, he starts ridiculing me alongside mother-in-law. Today, once again, mother-in-law speaks loudly enough for me to hear. Why did you choose an older woman, Robert? I thought for sure you'd marry Isabella from college. She's the same age and looks healthy. You'd probably have a grandchild or two by now. Robert responds with a laugh. Seriously, if I'd known Amelia couldn't have kids, I never would have married her. I really picked the wrong person, huh? Ever since then, my trust in Robert dwindled. Whenever we were together, I couldn't help but give him the cold shoulder. As a result, Robert started coming home less and less. I don't need dinner tonight. Got it. It seemed Robert was hanging out with his old friends almost every night. But eventually, whether he got tired of it or ran out of spending money, he stopped going out at night altogether. So, you're not going out drinking anymore? Annoyed, he replied. So what? Does me being home bother you or something? Not at all. I was just thinking it's nice for a married couple to share meals. Even though the pressure from my mother-in-law was persistent, I started to feel that growing old together was enough, even if we couldn't have children. That's why I started treating Robert better and making the most of our time together. However, Robert started going out again on weekends. In our college days, sudden invites were frequent, but those calls had ceased lately. If he starts coming home late again, that's gonna suck. As I waited for him to come back, what actually happened was far worse. Robert came home with a woman and a baby. Who's this? She's an old classmate, Isabella. Isabella was, if I remember correctly, Robert's college girlfriend that my mother-in-law mentioned. Why on earth would she be here? And she's holding a baby. Could it be they had a fight? Please divorce Robert. Excuse me? I looked at Robert and he looked more serious than I'd ever seen him. I had a bad feeling about this. Amelia, hear me out. I've decided to start over with Isabella. What do you mean? I met her again at last year's reunion and I realized she's the one I truly love. She's pregnant with my child. Your child? Robert, you can't be serious. It's true, but Isabella knew I was married, so she initially planned to raise the child on her own and gave birth in secret. Robert looked at Isabella with love. So why bring this up now? Isabella humbly replied, After seeing my child's face, I just wanted a normal life for them. I didn't want them to grow up as a single mother's child, but to be loved by both parents. How selfish. I get it. It's selfish, Amelia. I'm sorry for taking Robert away from you, but this child really needs a dad. Amelia, that's how it is. Then Robert chimed in. Look, I've always wanted a kid too. Everyone wins if you just let me go. So will you divorce me? I'm not the one who can't have kids. I forgave all his past wrongs and committed to our life together, and now this? Something inside me snapped. Fine. I agreed to the divorce. By the time I realized it, the words were out of my mouth. Hearing that, Robert leaned in, looking pleased. Thanks. I knew you'd understand, Amelia. So when can you move out? It seemed they couldn't wait to kick me out and start their new life in this home. How utterly self-centered. If that's what you both want, I can leave immediately, but I have a condition. You both have been dating since last year, right? You're aware that you're cheating. Well, we couldn't help it. We reconnected at a reunion and couldn't stop our feelings. I feel the same way. Isabella sparkled in agreement. I think the fact we've conceived proves that we're blessed. Happy-go-lucky, both of them. It's terrifying that they think I'd be okay with this. Good. I'm glad you admit to the cheating. Now I can cleanly claim compensation in the divorce. Upon hearing this, Robert and Isabella went pale instantly. Compensation? Are you a demon? You plan to take money from us while we're raising a child? Exactly. You've never had a child, Amelia. You don't get it. I have no intention of listening to either of you, I said coldly and in a low voice. I don't care about your circumstances. If you cheat behind my back and then unilaterally demand a divorce, it's only fair that you owe me compensation. Monster! Devil! Heartless woman! They shouted and screamed, spit flying. Ignoring them, I went in for the kill. If you can't afford to pay, why not ask mother-in-law? She's been dying to see her grandchild. She'd probably be happy to help. You're right. Mom will definitely help us out. Seemingly reassured, they agreed to pay me the amount I demanded. Of course, I also tacked on the cost of my accommodation until I could find a new home. To avoid future complications, I made sure they signed an agreement. Shall we go tell mother-in-law right away? Yeah, Mom will be so thrilled to finally have a grandchild. Ignoring my presence, Robert and Isabella excitedly discussed their new life. Later, when we visited mother-in-law at her home, we told her the whole story. Then mother-in-law exclaimed with surprise, Robert! Well done! I told you so, didn't I? It's better to marry a classmate. I always thought you and Isabella would be a better match than that old Amelia. Turns out my mother-in-law is just like Robert and Isabella. They only think about themselves. Soaking up mother-in-law's praise, Isabella is over the moon. Mother-in-law, thank you. Now, let me hold that long-awaited grandchild of mine. Robert stopped mother-in-law as she immediately moved to hold the baby. But there's a problem. Amelia is demanding a settlement. What a greedy woman! She says it's a condition for the divorce. Isabella and I want to be together as soon as possible and let you hold your grandchild, Mom. Robert, you're such a kind son. I'm proud of you. But we're going to need money for raising the kid. We can't make ends meet if we pay the settlement. Mother-in-law then smiled warmly at them. If that's the case, leave it to me. I've saved up some money for my grandchild. Use that to pay off the settlement. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mother-in-law.
Now let me hold the baby. Oh, how adorable. Those eyes are just like Robert's when he was a baby. To an outsider, they look like 3 happy generations of a family, blissfully unaware that it was all a facade. Here's the amount for the settlement. Oh, and let me give you this as well. When I showed the document, Mother-in-law instantly frowned. What's this? These are the results of my fertility test. I thought you all should know the truth. I showed everyone the test results. No problems. Then why haven't you had children yet? Smiling widely, I answered Mother-in-law's astonishment.
Could it be because the issue was with Robert?
What are you talking about? He clearly can have kids, right, Isabella?
Yes?
Isabella was visibly flustered. For the clueless people, I gave another hint. When did Robert reunite with Isabella at the reunion? It was last year, so about 6 months ago. Mother-in-law pulled out an invitation postcard from the drawer. Yes, indeed, 6 months ago. Wait. It seems Mother-in-law finally caught on. Hold on. You guys met again at the reunion, right? Yeah, it was the first time we had reunion in like 10 years or more. And yet, Isabella has already given birth. The timing doesn't add up. Sensing that she's been caught by her mother-in-law, Isabella starts making excuses.
Oh, well, this baby was born much earlier than his due date.
How many months old did you say he is? To mother-in-law's question, Robert proudly responds, he's just 1 month old. He's going to get cuter and cuter. Then mother-in-law says with a stern face, so that means he was in Isabella's belly for less than 5 months? What? Isn't that how pregnancy works? Don't be ridiculous. Pregnancy lasts 40 weeks, which is basically 10 months. A baby being in the womb for only 5 months doesn't make sense. Mother-in-law, filled with anger, confronts Isabella. What is going on here, Isabella? Realizing she can't talk her way out of this, Isabella finally comes clean.
Fine, the truth is the baby isn't Robert's, but at this point, who cares? He's a cute baby. Doesn't that count for something?
Hearing this, mother-in-law shouts at Isabella. Don't joke around. What I want is Robert's child, my own flesh and blood. I will never accept a child from some stranger. Robert seems to finally grasp the situation. Isabella, you lied to me? You said we were soulmates, that God gave us this baby.
Enough of this. I'll tell you the real story.
Isabella starts to speak her mind.
This child is from my ex-boyfriend, the one after Robert, but he was a terrible man and disappeared as soon as he found out I was pregnant. That's why I was looking for a new dad for him at our reunion.
You're kidding.
And you, Robert, fell right into my trap. I thought I was lucky, but who knew you'd be infertile and make things this complicated?
Annoyed, Isabella stands up, holding her baby, ready to leave.
I should have picked a different guy. Alimony sounds complicated, and you've got an annoying mother-in-law. I'll find another man to be this child's father.
Wait, where do you think you're going? I won't let Isabella go scot-free. Isabella taunts back at me as I hold her back.
What? If I break up with Robert, then I'm not involved anymore, right? Just go on with your life, or maybe you two should just reconcile quickly.
It's too late for that. Because of you, I have no intention of reconciling with Robert. You stole another woman's husband. You'll have to pay the price.
The price? I thought Robert's loving, kind mother would cover the alimony. Do you want more money or something?
Just as expected, my mother-in-law immediately rejected the idea. No way! Why would I pay any compensation? That child isn't even my grandchild. Even Robert and Isabella started to panic. Mom, you said earlier you'd help us.
Yeah, Auntie, you said you had savings.
My savings are for my grandchildren, not some random kid. You two better figure this out yourselves. I can't afford to pay $10,000 or $30,000. Too bad. I've got a signed agreement. Then Robert tried to sweet-talk me. Look, Amelia, we've been doing just fine without kids. Can't we just start over? I already told you, I have no intention of starting over with you. If you fail to pay, I'll take legal action. You can't be serious. We've been doing well so far. Who ruined that? You did. Before I knew it, I was yelling at Robert. I thought even if we couldn't have kids, we'd still be happy together. But you listen to your mom, cheat on me, and the kid isn't even yours? You're pathetic. Then can't we just be happy from now on? Shut up! I will never get back together with you. Go live your life with your dear mother. You and I are now strangers. Amelia, you can't be serious. Ignoring his pleas, I left Robert's family home. I'll never come back here. I quickly packed up my things and moved out. Robert doesn't know where I'm going, so I'll never have to see his face again. Soon enough, I started a new life in a rented apartment. Maybe it was the mention of legal action, but Robert and Isabella did end up paying the compensation. I didn't have to worry about money. I have no idea what became of them. The payments came from separate accounts, so they must have broken up. As for whether Robert remarried, I don't know, but it's certain he still has no kids. His mother will likely never hold a grandchild or use her savings. It does make me feel a bit sad for her. A year after leaving Robert, I was proposed to by a coworker. We now have 2 children, and our family of 4 is happily living life. From here on out, I plan to fully enjoy this newfound happiness with my family.
What do you think? I asked. Why should I care? Make up your mind yourself. Lloyd brushed off the conversation. When I thought about how we could enjoy our remaining days in the Maldives without being bothered by anyone, my hesitation vanished. Once we got home, we quickly started packing. Can we move right away? Yep, we're good to go. We had movers come immediately and they began hauling away our packed items. Then we headed straight to the real estate agent. We'd like to sell our home. The agent was incredibly helpful and arranged for a same-day sale. Now, Lloyd truly had no place to go back to. My name is Marcy, and I'm 43 years old. I currently live with my husband Lloyd in a Manhattan apartment. We got married 5 years ago. We haven't had kids due to marrying late. Lloyd often says, "Life isn't just about having kids." And that helps me live without feeling guilty for not being able to have children. Lloyd is 45 and in the prime of his working life. Recently, he's been working a lot of overtime and coming home late. I used to work at the same company as Lloyd, but quit after we got married. Lloyd said it would be awkward to work at the same company as his wife. Since then, I've been a full-time housewife. One day, my sister-in-law from the neighboring town called. It had been a while, so when she called to say she was concerned about our mother's condition and couldn't check on her, I agreed to go. Sister-in-law is a dependable person. I've been grateful to her many times since marrying Lloyd. Sister-in-law has 2 kids who are in 9th and 12th grade, and they're both doing well. I hold sister-in-law in high regard, so it's no surprise her kids are turning out great. Of course, I went to check on my mother-in-law the next day. It's easy to see why sister-in-law is such a great person when you meet mother-in-law. I adore mother-in-law. She's straightforward, has strong opinions, and is mindful of others. I feel truly grateful to have met such wonderful in-laws like mother-in-law and sister-in-law. When I arrived and entered their house, I was shocked. The place was a mess, full of clutter and trash. It looked like a hoarder's house. Something was clearly wrong, as mother-in-law is normally very neat. Mother-in-law was just sitting there, doing nothing, looking spaced out. I called out, "Mother-in-law?" She slowly turned her head and said, "Who are you again?" As she stood up. She looked at Lloyd and said, "Oh, Lloyd. Welcome." We were stunned. Concerned by the sudden change in mother-in-law, we quickly made a doctor's appointment for the next day. After several tests, the results came back. She had dementia. Moreover, she needed long-term care. We called sister-in-law to come to the house and discussed what to do next. Taking care of someone long-term means that we'd need to look after my mother-in-law indefinitely at her home. Of course, public programs and private services are also options, but my sister-in-law offered, Marcy, thanks for everything. I'll take it from here. Surprisingly, Lloyd objected. No, your place is far, and moving your kids would be a hassle. True, my sister-in-law lives in the next town over, which would require her younger child to change schools. We should move in with my parents to take care of them. What do you think, Marcy? I was shocked. I never thought Lloyd was that responsible. Moved by his sincerity, I agreed. Of course, all for my beloved mother-in-law. And so began my daily caregiving life for my mother-in-law. We moved in with her and started our new life together. I managed the household and took full responsibility for mother-in-law's care. She'd wander off if you took your eyes off her, so I had to constantly watch her. Whether doing laundry, cleaning, or cooking, I was always monitoring her. Then I noticed she looked lonely. Was this life really making her happy? Even with dementia, she should still have moments of joy. Being under constant surveillance couldn't be fun. So I tried something. Mother-in-law, would you like to help me fold the laundry? Her face lit up. I'd love to. Though her hands weren't as nimble, she was clearly enjoying the task. I was relieved that I'd made the right call. From that point on, instead of watching her, we did things together. Seemingly, she found moving around less of a chore. On sunny days, how about we have lunch in the park today? That sounds lovely. And off we went for a meal outdoors. I never found this life burdensome. Sister-in-law always handled hospital trips, and her kids visited mother-in-law often. But one person was completely uncooperative. Lloyd. The same Lloyd who'd said, "We'll take care of mother-in-law." He never lifted a finger to help. Sharing updates or asking for his input always met with disinterest or reluctance. When I'd ask for help, "I'm tired from work. Why should I tire myself more at home?" was his response. He'd been working late, so maybe he was tired, but some help would be nice. He didn't even talk to mother-in-law. When I'd suggest plans for her, "Why should I care? Decide yourself." He'd brush me off. As it stood, it seemed Lloyd only came home to sleep. Things had gotten to a point where it seemed like Lloyd was coming home from work just to sleep. One evening, 11 p.m. came and went, and Lloyd hadn't returned. He'd often been saying he was working late, coming home just past 11, so I assumed that was the case tonight and went to bed first. However, I found it hard to fall asleep that night. As I lay there, the clock ticked past midnight. Where's Lloyd? I thought, just as I heard a car outside. It's unusual to hear a car at this hour, so I looked out the window. The person getting out of the car was Lloyd, and in the driver's seat, there was a woman. They both got out and smiled at each other, and unbelievably, they kissed. Not just for a moment, they lingered. I spontaneously took photos with my phone, amazed at myself for doing it. The house has a bedroom on the first floor. Our bedroom window isn't far from the car, and the photos captured everything clearly. My hands were trembling from the shock. I heard the front door open, and I rushed back to bed. Those photos would later become my trump card. From that night on, I started watching Lloyd more carefully. There were many suspicious signs. Telling me he was working late itself was suspicious. I knew what kind of work Lloyd was doing because we used to work at the same company. I know what kind of work Lloyd does, and it's easy to see that it doesn't require overtime. That kind of lie could be easily checked. So I called up an old colleague, friend. "Long time no talk. What's up?" "Sorry for the sudden call, but I was wondering about Lloyd's department. Have they been really busy lately?" "Lloyd? No, I just got transferred from his department last month. It's not busy at all, actually." There's no way he could be doing overtime in such a relaxed department, which means Lloyd is likely spending time with his affair partner. My suspicions were confirmed. One morning, I saw Lloyd getting ready to leave with a large bag. "What's with the big bag?" I asked. Nervously, he replied, "I have a sudden week-long business trip. Take care of things while I'm gone." "Where are you going for a week?" I don't know yet. I'll find out when I get to the office. So I'll be going. And he left, evasively. I texted friend, is anyone scheduled for a business trip today? I haven't checked, but shouldn't be. No big projects lately. Just as I thought. So he's going to be away from home for a week to meet his affair partner? Then my mother-in-law called my name. Marcy! She showed me a piece of paper. Written in Lloyd's handwriting were what appeared to be a hotel name, phone number, today's and tomorrow's dates, and a room number. What is this? Before doing Lloyd's laundry last time, I found this note in his pocket. I wish I had given it to you sooner. I'm sorry, Marcy. Do you also suspect Lloyd then? Marcy, we can't just turn a blind eye to this. Lloyd must be held accountable. There's no time for us to be down. The mother-in-law speaking was the strong woman I knew before her dementia. I felt more determined seeing this side of her after so long. Absolutely, I will not let him off the hook. First, considering mother-in-law's opinion, we decided to call sister-in-law. As soon as sister-in-law arrived, she said, Marcy, I'm so sorry. My brother is an idiot for doing such a thing. There's no need for you to apologize, I told sister-in-law as we planned our next moves. First, we checked the note and found out the location of the hotel. Lloyd was likely staying at this hotel for today and tomorrow. What would we do next? The next day, we decided to drive to the hotel in sister-in-law's car. We arrived at a hotel close to the airport and recognized a car in the parking lot. I looked at the pictures on my phone. Of course, they were the ones of Lloyd kissing another woman. It was the same car in those pictures. After a while, a familiar man came out of the hotel. It was Lloyd. We hid behind the cars to avoid being seen. Soon after, a woman came out and cozily linked arms with Lloyd. As I captured the scene with my phone, I couldn't believe what I saw. Both mother-in-law and sister-in-law were speechless. There was a little boy, about 1 year old, with them. The child happily held Lloyd's hand. The three walked happily, and they all walked off looking like a happy family. The real wife, me, was the one capturing this scene. Feeling miserable was the least of my concerns. The three of them headed to the airport, leaving their car at the hotel. Once they arrived at the airport, they laughed and killed time before disappearing into a flight gate. The destination was the Maldives. There was no longer any reason to hesitate. Thinking about how Lloyd would spend the remaining days there without any disruptions. When we returned home, we immediately began packing. I called a moving company and asked, "Can we move out immediately?" "Yep, that's no problem." They came to help us pack, and we temporarily stored our belongings at sister-in-law's place. Next, we went straight to a real estate agent. I want to sell my house. The agent was incredibly kind and expedited the selling process for us. Now Lloyd had no home to return to. The thought alone made me feel refreshed. Afterward, mother-in-law and I checked into a nearby hotel where we would stay for a while. With that settled, there was something I had to confirm. Could the child with Lloyd's affair partner be his? To find out, I decided to consult a lawyer and a private investigator. The results of the investigation became clear right away. The report handed to me clearly listed that unfamiliar child as Lloyd's son. Lloyd had told me, "Kids aren't the only joy in life." But did he actually want a child? Did he have an affair because he couldn't have children with me? Only he knows the answer. But I can't keep this inside, as even my mother-in-law told me. I will never forgive him. 7 days later, my phone rang. It was Lloyd. "Hey, where are you? I can't get into the house. The key's not working." "That's because I sold the house." "What are you talking about?" "Hope you enjoyed your 6-day, 5-night trip to the Maldives. Must have been fun with your family of 3. Made some good memories, did you?" I could tell Lloyd was stunned on the other end of the line. I continued, "Your house is no longer there. We've moved and sold it. You should go back to your own child and that woman." "Wait, you misunderstand. That's not my kid. I was fed up with Lloyd's excuses and unleashed all my anger. Don't you dare play games with me. You think your excuses are going to work now? I never want to see you again. For the first time, my usually talkative husband was silent. On speakerphone, my mother-in-law chimed in. Lloyd, just so you know, there's no escaping this. We have all the evidence, and our lawyer is listening to this call. You'll be getting a compensation claim from Marcy, so pay it without arguing. Also, from now on, I'm cutting off any mother-son relationship with you. Don't think you can fall back on me, and you can forget about any inheritance. What? Mom, you're clearly not suffering from dementia. Can you believe it? I have genuine dementia, but listen, if Marcy is this hurt and in such a tight spot, how can I not step up? Marcy has been by my side, taking care of me all this time. I can't just sit around being a useless mother-in-law when I can't even repay her kindness. Hearing those words, tears flowed from my eyes, even after what my husband did to me. I felt truly blessed to have such a kind mother-in-law and a supportive sister-in-law. I was the luckiest daughter-in-law. Later on, Lloyd paid the $80,000 compensation I demanded, all in one go. Although it was a high sum, thanks to my excellent lawyer, we managed to secure the full amount. While evidence photos helped, the most impactful was the revelation of his secret child. Though my inability to have children played a part, that's a complicated feeling. I reported every detail of Lloyd's affair to his company, and he became the talk of the office, but not in a good way. Everyone from his coworkers to his bosses started looking at him coldly. Even after paying the compensation, his savings depleted. He couldn't afford to quit, and he's living a miserable life working under those conditions. His affair partner turned cold on him once the money ran out, and he isn't even allowed to see his child. Yet he still has to pay child support, leaving him in a dire financial and emotional state. My sister-in-law's eldest got into college and moved out, so my mother-in-law moved in with her. I bought a piece of land and built a small house there, starting a new chapter in my life. I'm using my qualifications and working from home. I'm never lonely because my mother-in-law and sister-in-law frequently visit. My mother-in-law's dementia seemed to miraculously disappear. Doctors say it's not a full recovery, but she believes it's all thanks to Marcy. I plan to find more joy in my life and live each day happier than ever before.
Where are you right now? Are you okay? With my heart pounding in my chest, I tried to check on my husband, but to my surprise, my husband was perfectly fine. In fact, he lets out a heavy sigh over the phone and dismissively replies, "What's all this about? I'm at work as usual. Stop calling me when I'm busy." At this point, it was confirmed. I was sure that he was lying to me. It's time for me to put my long-held plan into action. My name is Mary, and I'm 30 years old. I work as a nurse at a senior care facility, where I face the daily reality of aging. Looking back, people used to tell me in my student days that I was naturally caring. So when I grew up, it only made sense for me to choose a profession where I could put that nature to good use. The residents at the facility range from those who are relatively active to those suffering from dementia. Every time one of them thanks me, I feel a sense of fulfillment, and I have a loving husband. His name is Mark, and like me, he's also 30. It's almost been 3 years since we got married, and we've been able to live a happy married life. Although we don't have children yet, there's no particular dissatisfaction. I still wanted to enjoy my time with my husband. However, my husband has been working overtime and working on holidays. He works at a bank and is busy every day. Even so, I had never heard of working on holidays at the bank, so I was a little suspicious. Lately, he's been coming home from work looking irritated and sighing. He often doesn't eat the prepared dinner, and our time together has greatly decreased. These days continued for a while, and I, worried, decided to probe my husband. I subtly called out to him as he relaxed with a beer after returning home. "Hey Mark, you've been coming home late lately. Is work that busy?" Yeah, it's busy." My husband replied, looking tired. "You know, the new semester's coming up, right? Maybe that's why we have a lot of customers for transfers and account openings. That kind of work takes quite a bit of time." "Is that so? But banks have strict business hours, right? Even so, do they have overtime and work on holidays?" Upon my inquiry, My husband's eyebrow twitched. I didn't miss that moment. That reaction. Maybe there really is no overtime or working on holidays. But Mark wouldn't lie about something like that. Seeing me deep in thought, my husband quickly said, "That's not it." He started to explain with a broad smile as if making an excuse. "Actually, there's a lot of work that doesn't finish within business hours. New employees are coming soon, right? I'm also working on making manuals for them. It's just really busy." Manuals? Are you the one making them, Mark? Yeah. All the other employees said they are bad at it, so I had no choice but to do it. Oh, I see. Well, that's the gist of it. Even if I come home late, don't worry. I might be at home less, but I'll make sure to earn properly in return. Saying this, my husband resumed his beer and started playing games. What my husband is saying is logical, but there's one thing that feels out of place. It's that he said he's creating manuals. It may not be a nice thing to say, but my husband is inherently technophobic. He can do the bare minimum of operations required for work, but he has virtually no tolerance for computer work. On the other hand, I'm good with machines, so I often teach my husband how to operate them. I can't imagine him, of all people, creating manuals for new employees. After all, manuals should be adding changes to the original copy. Would they really leave that to Mark, a single employee? My sense of discomfort grew, and my suspicion towards my husband increased. A few days later, something happened. My husband, who had been coming home late from overtime, unusually returned home at 6 p.m. But after eating dinner, he said he felt sick and went out for a walk. I suggested he rest early, but "I want to breathe some fresh air," he said, and left somewhat forcibly. It was the first time my husband had said something like this, so I was puzzled. Feeling sick and going for a walk? What would he do if he collapsed while out? Unable to shake my unease, I decided to secretly follow my husband so he wouldn't notice. However, contrary to my worries, he moved on with a light step. My husband stopped at a small park a little distance from our home. After looking around as if to be cautious, he started to call someone on his smartphone. A few minutes later, a white car parked right next to my husband. He immediately got into the passenger seat of the car. There was an unfamiliar woman in the driver's seat. What's with that car? What's the relationship with Mark? Just as I was about to approach the car with suspicion, the woman and Mark were in a tight embrace inside the car. What? What are you doing? My voice involuntarily quivers at the sight. Unaware of my confusion, the two exchange a passionate kiss. My husband and this unknown woman desiring each other. By the time I realized I was taking out my phone and turning on the camera. After capturing my husband's affair in photos and videos, I was snapped back to reality by the sound of the engine. By the time I regained my composure, the car had already driven off. Confusion, disgust, shock, sorrow. Various emotions were swirling inside me. When I finally managed to return home, a text from Mark arrived saying, "I met up with a friend, so I'll be home late." A friend? That can't be right. The scene of the affair replays in my mind over and over. I just couldn't believe his words. In the end, Mark came home after 2 in the morning. As my dissatisfaction was about to explode, I held back my tears and thrust the screen of my phone at him. "Hey, what is this?" "Huh?" I can see Mark's eyes darting around, clearly shaken. Seeing such an obvious reaction, I felt an indescribable feeling. "Explain yourself!" As I confronted the stuttering Mark, he showed a forceful smile. "No, it's not like that, Mary. She's just a friend." "A friend? Do you hug your friends like that?" "It's not like that. It's like a friendship between men and women, like comrades. It doesn't mean anything deeper." "Then what about this photo? You're clearly kissing, right?" That angle is bad. It only looked like we were kissing from your angle. I didn't do anything like that, and I wouldn't. I have an important wife named Mary. I wouldn't do something like cheat." After that, Mark continued to make excuses, desperately trying to cover up. "It's really not what you think. Please believe me. I didn't do anything like that." He pleaded with a pained expression as if he was the victim. He wouldn't let me get a word in, but his shallow words wouldn't change how I feel. I decided to watch him a bit more. With that decision, I started monitoring his activities at home the next day. Then, things I didn't think much of before started catching my eye. I used to think he was just playing games, but he spent a lot of time looking at his phone. He checks his phone while watching TV, takes it with him to the bathroom when he bathes, and even when he sleeps, he holds onto his phone until he falls asleep. He's probably in touch with that woman from the car. He probably thinks it would be bad if I saw it, so he takes it with him wherever he goes. Ever since that day I confronted him about his affair, he's been coming home right on time, as if all his previous overtime was a lie. "Mary, I'm home. I bought a cake on my way back today. Let's eat it together." "A cake? Why all of a sudden?" "No particular reason." "You like sweet things, right, Mary? I thought you might be tired." "Thank you." Mark smiles and hands me the box of a cake. He's clearly trying to cheer me up. Even though he used to say he was working overtime, he started coming home on time as soon as I confronted him about his affair. Does he not think that's strange? Does he think that if he can get on my good side, it will be as if that date never happened? I'm disappointed and appalled by his shallow plan and find myself unable to say anything. My feelings for Mark have been fading day by day, and before I knew it, I was only speaking the bare minimum to him. This gives Mark some room to breathe. Perhaps relieved that I'm not saying anything, he starts working overtime again. When Mark comes home late at night, I ask, "What were you doing?" With a frustrated expression, he responded, "Why do I have to explain everything? Don't you trust me at all?" Huh? Are you seriously saying that? After what you did before? You have the audacity to use the word trust? That's why. She's just a friend. By doubting me so much, aren't you, Mary, the one doing something shady? Huh? How did you come to that conclusion? Just because it's inconvenient for you, don't make me the bad guy. That's what I want to say, even though I keep saying it's not like that. Do you enjoy suspecting your husband's infidelity? Enjoy? No way. If I could, I wouldn't want to suspect the husband I love. However, it's harder to not suspect him in this situation. The one who's behaved suspiciously first was none other than Mark himself. Since that day, my husband and I have been in a cold war. At the same time, his behavior escalated and he began to smirk as he openly played with his smartphone at home. Perhaps he thinks he was not found out. He even started making phone calls on the balcony late at night. By this point, my husband's infidelity is 100% certain. However, photos from my smartphone alone are insufficient evidence. I decided to secretly request a detective agency to investigate his infidelity. 2 weeks later, on my way to pick up the report I'd requested, I saw multiple patrol cars rushing by with sirens blaring. I was curious, as I don't usually see so many patrol cars, when a news notification came in on my smartphone app. "A robbery at ABC Bank. The culprits are in a standoff." The headline jumped into my sight and my heart pounded. ABC Bank? Isn't that the bank where Mark works? Even though my feelings had already cooled down, I felt a strong sense of unease. What if something happened to Mark? Thinking about the worst case scenario, a cold sweat ran down my back. I immediately took out my smartphone and frantically called my husband. Please be safe. I wondered why I still felt this way about him who had betrayed me. However, I don't have time to think about that right now. After several rings, a curt voice responded, "What?" In response, I blurted out a question to him. "Where are you now? Are you okay?" In a panic, I checked on the safety of my husband, who was likely at the scene. He sighed deeply and with an annoyed tone said, "What's up all of a sudden? I'm at work now, isn't it obvious?" "You're at work. So you're at ABC Bank, right? Are you okay?" "Huh? What? What's what? Don't call me during work hours if you don't need anything. I'm busy." Without waiting for my response, he hung up the phone. At that moment, the slight love I had left for my husband froze over. I hope he's safe. Just a few minutes ago, I was genuinely thinking that. However, now I only feel disgust towards him. Why can he be so calm when there's a robbery and standoff happening at his workplace? To begin with, he shouldn't be able to touch his phone during an incident. It was then that I finally realized he must still be somewhere with his mistress. Fueled by anger, I called a moving company and headed straight to the detective agency. After receiving plenty of incriminating photos, I headed directly to the city hall. As soon as I returned home, I packed all my essentials into a box and organized my belongings. While signing the divorce papers I got from the city hall, suddenly the intercom rang. At the door, immediate response movers were waiting. I entrusted them with the boxes filled with my stuff, which they delivered to my new home. I looked around the empty room. I asked myself, is this really the right choice? Yes, it's okay. My choice is absolutely not a mistake. I left the divorce papers and the removed wedding ring on the table, and without hesitation, I left the house I lived in with my husband. The place I headed after leaving the house was an apartment near my workplace. I had rented the room in advance just in case anything happened after I noticed my husband's infidelity. When I arrived, the mover's truck was already parked there, so I proceeded to move in my belongings. As I was unpacking and thinking about the future, the vibration of my smartphone alerted me to an incoming call. The screen displayed Mark. I took a deep breath, composed my turbulent emotions, and answered his call. Hello?
Hey, Mary, where are you right now? When I got home, your stuff was gone.
I only took my belongings from home. Any problem?
You took your stuff? What the hell are you talking about?
Mark's urgency was palpable, transmitted over the phone. I conveyed the facts to him in a calm manner. I will not return to that house anymore. You saw what was on the table, didn't you?
The table? Huh. What is this, divorce papers? This is not a joke. Don't mess around.
Mess around? I'm being very serious, though.
That's crazy. Why do I have to see divorce papers as soon as I get home?
I was filled with simmering anger at his selfishness, being negative about the divorce while he was doing the worst thing. There's no more sympathy left for such a man. Having made up my mind, I let my accumulated anger explode. Stop messing around. Stop joking. What you were doing was not work. It was an affair. I already know everything. It's strange that you can call me while a robbery is going on at your workplace.
A robbery?
Yes, a robbery broke into your workplace today. Despite causing a major fuss, you had no knowledge of it, which means you weren't at the bank.
No way, a standoff? That's...
Where were you during that time? With whom? If you can answer, try answering, you piece of shit. As I shouted over the phone, my husband seemed to realize he could not hide it anymore and confessed to his infidelity in resignation.
I'm sorry. I met a woman on a dating app in a moment of my weakness.
Oh, a dating app, huh?
I wanted some excitement in life. Every day ends at the scheduled time. There is no fun. I wanted to change such a life.
So you cheated sneakily.
I won't do it anymore. I beg you, please forgive me. You're all I have.
He pleaded desperately, but of course, I did not respond. Shut up. Go seek your thrill on your own. Don't you dare contact me ever again. I hung up the phone with force and threw my smartphone onto the sofa. Afterwards, since my husband was reluctant to sign the divorce papers, I had to resort to hiring a lawyer and claim damages from him and his mistress. Feeling threatened by the lawyer's involvement, he quickly agreed to the divorce and promised to pay the full amount of damages. The woman, angry at being sued for damages, promptly left my husband. I feel annoyed to express gratitude to a woman who laid hands on my own husband, but I was able to take revenge on my husband because of her. So I thank her for cheating with my husband. I was able to throw away the unnecessary things and finally step into a valuable life. For a while, days of striving at work will continue. I will live each day cherishing it, proud of my own life.